everyone, it's me Lois with Aussie Knit Designs, and this is Knitfits. So before we get into today's conversation, I did a lot of thinking yesterday because I was preparing for today's Knitfits. And while I was doing that, I was thinking that the Knitfits that was unscripted that I did at the beginning for the pattern overview worked really well because the pattern itself is broken into little sections and I could pick one and just talk about it, and it was so great. But that's not true for all knitting subjects. And so some preparation actually really helps, like in our gauge conversation. So what I've decided to do to ease the stress off of me and to make better quality videos for you is to kind of pump the brakes a little bit. And I'll still be doing Knitfits, but you can look for it 2 times a week. So I will be doing Knitfits live on Facebook on Wednesdays and Fridays. I will then be editing the videos and putting them on YouTube by Tuesdays and Thursdays. So if it's a Wednesday video, I should be able to have that on YouTube by Thursday. If it's a Friday video, you can look for that on the following Tuesday. Anyway, with that out of the way, hello, I'm Lois with Aussie Knit Designs. This is Knitfits, and we're in our All About Gauge series. So our knitting gauge series is continuing, and oh my gosh, we've just been talking about so many things. So we've already covered what we mean when we talk about knitting gauge, right? How important knitting gauge is to us as end user knitters, and what it means to be off with too many stitches in our 4-inch measurement or too few. And so today we're going to be talking about one of the ways in which people match gauge, which is this kind of, it's not really a rule, but kind of just like a rule of thumb or advice that I've seen around the internet, which is that it's okay to be off on your gauge by 10 to 20%. I've mostly seen 10%, but I did see 20%. And if you watched yesterday's video at all, I think that being off by 20% is too much, depending on the item that you're knitting. If it's a scarf, it's probably fine. That's up to you. But like for a sweater, no. 20% is way too much. And so today we're going to dive into that 10% rule, and I'm really excited for today's video because I've also created for you guys a free knitting gauge calculator so that you can see exactly how far off you are, and that will help you then decide what you should do for your knitting project. If you want to make another knit gauge swatch, or if you want to maybe make a different size, and we're going to get into all of that. But real quick, if you do like Knitfits, would you please take a moment right now to hit like, share, and subscribe? I would really appreciate that. I know that we can get caught up in the video and lose track of doing that, so I just like to ask you at the beginning. All right. So like I said, I made a free knitting gauge calculator that you guys can use. This calculator will have you enter the gauge information from your knitting pattern that you're working on, and then from your gauge swatch, and then it will actually calculate everything for you. So it's going to tell you how many stitches you were off and what that means in inches. Everything is rounded to the 1/2 inch or the full inch. So you don't have to worry about rounding. That's all done for you. And so there are hidden cells, there are formulas that shouldn't be touched, and the instructions that come with the calculator tell you which cells you can go ahead and edit. And so it is free. I will be putting a link for you guys to go and grab that if you're interested. I think it could be really helpful. I plan to use it, that's for sure. When you get your copy of this, so you'll give me your email and I'll email it to you. And when you get your copy of it, it is a Google Sheets calculator. So you will need to hit File, Copy, and save it on your own computer or on your own drive so that you can go ahead and edit it the way that you need to. Okay. Ooh, all right. So let's get into our gauge discussion. I actually thought it would be really helpful if we walked through like another example. Yesterday, I made up a simple math example, but today I thought it would be fun to work off of a actual pattern. So I went to Ravelry and I looked up free sweater patterns, and I found one called Flax, Flax, and it's by Tincanknits. Now, I have never personally knit this sweater before, but I have knit a hat from Tincanknits before. It went really well. It was a great pattern. And I've also heard really positive things about Tincanknits. Maybe you're familiar with them. And so I felt very comfortable selecting this pattern and letting us use this as our example. They're not affiliated with me, and I'm not sponsored by them. I just picked a free pattern for us to walk through. So the most important thing that I liked about this pattern and why I selected it is it has so much flexibility. And so we're going to have fun with this today. All right, so the gauge in the pattern is for 18 stitches and 22 rounds in a 4x4 inch or 10 by 10 centimeters square piece of fabric that's knit in stockinette stitch. Some other really important notes about this design is that it comes with flexibility in the way that it fits you, the person. So one of the models is wearing it with a 2-inch positive gauge, so it's a little bit looser on them. And then one of the other models is wearing it with a 2-inch negative ease, so it's more fitted look. So not only do you come into this pattern with a ton of different size options, but you can also choose what kind of fit you like. And I think that is really cool, and it's definitely going to help us on our 10% rule journey, right? Okay, so let's say that we go ahead and we decide that we're going to swatch out for this pattern. It does call for 18 stitches in a 4-inch piece of fabric, so we're going to go ahead and cast on 36 because I like to do 8-inch swatches. So we're going to cast on 8 inches, join in the round, and knit for 44 rounds, because that would give us a nice size swatch to see if we're matching gauge. We won't end up with an 8 by 8 inch piece of fabric, or we will, but we can't measure it that way. What we will end up with is 8 inches, hopefully, by 4 inches, because it's knit in the round, and so we'll lay it flat and then we'll measure. So after that, let's pretend that when we finished our gauge swatch, I'm sorry, I have to put on my glasses, and I know the light is going to glare, but I just can't see. All right, so to get the 10% difference that we're testing today, what we want to do is pretend that we got 19.75 stitches per 4 inches instead of 18. Okay, and the reason we're pretending that is because that works out to just like a little bit less than 10%. So that's close enough to what we're testing in this video. So we're going to pretend that we're knitting the size adult medium. That's the size that we want to knit, but we want to see how much difference that 10% is going to make. Okay, so now what we want to do is look at the pattern itself. Because it's knit from the top down and it has some raglan shaping, the number of stitches that we're concerned about, how far off we are, is not the cast on number like it was in yesterday's example. In today's example, it's knit in the round from the top down. We care about the bust or the body measurement. That is what we are most concerned about impacting by missing our gauge. And so what we want to do is go down. I look down further in the pattern, and there's a section where it splits the sleeve shaping off from the body shaping. And so when I look at that body shaping number, the number of stitches it says for the body is 166 stitches. Okay, so if it's 166 stitches for the body, and we were getting gauge as according to the pattern, that would be like 4.5 stitches per inch. That would give us approximately 37 inches. But that's not the gauge that we got. We got 19.75 stitches per 4 inches. So what would that look like? Well, if we divided that 166 by the 4.94 stitches we're getting per inch, it would actually end up being 33.5 inches of fabric. If I was aiming to knit a size medium of 37 inches, then that's not really going to work. So I can do a couple of different things. First of all, if I wanted a fitted sweater, it's just going to make it more fitted than the picture that the model is wearing. So I might be okay with that, right? Or I could go ahead and make a new gauge swatch and try to get closer to matching gauge. That's always an option, right? We can always do that. We just don't want to. Or we can make a different size and see if we get closer to what it is that we're looking for. So in this amazing pattern, which has so many sizes, they actually have a medium and then they have a medium large. So that one is 176 stitches for the body in the round. And so if we do that math, we're going to end up with 35.5 inches. Now, if you were hoping for the more fitted look and that's why you picked the medium, you might look at that and be like, okay, now I'm on target because that's going to be just 1.5 inches less than the 37, and I like the fitted look. I'm good to go. I'm going to go ahead and cast on for the medium large size. Or if you were hoping to have something with the positive size, like a little bit looser fitting, you could go and see for the large one. It's up to you as the knitter. I think in this scenario, I would be totally fine with being 10% off in my gauge swatch, especially if I liked the way my gauge swatch looked and I liked the drape of the fabric. So if I knit a gauge swatch and I didn't like the way that the swatch looked, I didn't like the drape of the fabric, I might be more than willing to do a new swatch. But if I'm liking how all of that is looking, you don't really want to change it, this kind of pattern makes it possible for me not to have to do that. And if you download the free calculator I made for you guys, you don't have to do all this complicated math at all. It's like so easy because you're just going to plug in the number of stitches over the number of inches, and then you plug in the number of stitches for the largest section of your pattern, whether that's a hat or the body of a sweater or whatever. You plug that in and then you plug in what your actual swatch was, and then it's going to tell you you are 2 stitches off, and that's going to result in being X number of inches off. And then you can make educated decisions about what you want to do, whether that's knitting a new gauge swatch or go ahead and make something with the gauge that you got, just a different size. All right, so I just want to say that I will be posting a link to the Flax free knit pattern. It is a free knit sweater pattern by Tincanknits. And again, I'm not affiliated or sponsored by them. I just wanted to use it as the example in today's video. Helpful. So if you enjoyed this video, again, I hope that you will hit like, share, and subscribe to my channel. I will be editing it and putting the other version on YouTube, hopefully tomorrow. We'll see. Anyway, I will put a link to the free calculator. Please hit like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day. Bye-bye.